welcome. This is the Launch Podcast. I am your host, Zach Barbias, sitting here with co-host Rob Starbuck. Together we make Launch Livin'. Music tonight is brought to you by The Palms Music. You can find them on Instagram and social at The Palms Music. Thank you very much for letting us roll your tunes. You can also find us on Instagram at starbuck.rob and at Zach Barbias. That's ZACBARBIASZ. And you can find us together at Launch Livin'. You can peep all the different workouts we have going on there. Browse the lifestyle, get into it. We hope you like it. We hope you love the podcast. And we are excited to sit down and have a little candid chat together tonight, just simply talking about who we are, where we came from, where we're at now. So sit back, relax, enjoy, and we will see you at the top.
What's up?
I almost forgot your name there. This is Rob Starbuck or Starbuck. What are we going by?
You go by either. I guess I should probably get an explanation on that. So many people are like, yo, is your name really Starbuck? Like, what in the world, dude? And yes, that is the name. It's a family name. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Rob Starbuck it is. And yeah, we're just hanging out tonight. We're going to have a little conversation between the two of us, just detailing more or less who we are, how we got to where we are right now, and just to share our stories with you all, the listeners, so that you just have a better idea of where we are coming from. And I hope you enjoy. Yeah, just candid conversation here tonight. We're just hanging out. Candles are lit, coffee is brewed, sage is burning. Got my Grateful Dead shirt on. Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, whatever you want to fire at me this my way tonight, cool, totally cool. And just hope that by the end of it, I give you all a better idea of who I am. And who I am, my name is Zach Barbias, and I am your host and co-host. And once again, sitting over here, hanging out with great friend Rob Starbuck.
Yeah, so Zach and I actually met each other when we were still in high school at our spring game going up to Georgetown.
Very true. I mean,
going into Georgetown as recruits.
Yeah, I'd heard about you. And yeah, I remember like...
Because your brother was my host.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And you had long, flowy, broy hair. And spring game of senior year of high school for us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, lo and behold, over a decade later or so, we're still hanging out, and first friend at Georgetown.
First friend. It's
kind of wild.
It is extremely wild to think about. That was 2006. So wow. 11 years ago. We're roommates for 2.5 years because we did a half super senior year.
Super senior, super awesome year.
Super awesome year. That's where we got introduced to yoga and meditation.
Oh yeah, essentially you're right.
Those classes.
Father Curry acting class. Probably my favorite class at Georgetown, actually. Rest in peace, Father Curry.
Yeah, R.I.P.
Yeah.
But then after school, we took two completely different paths. I didn't have a job lined up. I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life, and ended up moving home with my parents to Greensboro, North Carolina, for a few months. Zach did the opposite.
Ski bum for life.
Yeah. Z Money moved out to Steamboat, Colorado. What were you thinking of just going out there? What made you want to do that?
I mean, it had so many parts, but I don't know. I kind of always just had this burning desire since I was a little kid to be a skier or a snowboarder, or, you know, like from a young age, I was really into motocross and the X Games and those types of sports. It was like I was raised playing organized sports, but almost all my free time, all my spare time was spent riding BMX or skateboarding, which I sucked at. I actually sucked at both of those, but it was just really fun. And then in the wintertime, it was cool. Like my dad would take my brother and I up to, say, Stowe, Vermont, or Okemo or Stratton. It might have only been 1 or 2 days a year, but it was like the best 1 or 2 days of the year when you got to go skiing at a real resort. Otherwise, I was like making jumps in my backyard. I broke my arm 2 years in a row snowboarding, being basically the lab rat for these jumps that my brother and his friends had made up. And so I was always sort of into that. The surfing. When I was young, we would go down to the Carolinas, and I would be the one wanting to rent a surfboard. So I was always into these adventure sports, and it just kind of always made me feel my best. Like, it was exhilarating. I felt just thought it was totally rad and really enjoyed it. So it was no surprise to me when I landed in Colorado. But so I guess to answer your question, it was like this basically childhood dream that I was about to live out. I was finally making decisions for myself, and the decision I was making was like, let's go. I'm going to Colorado. Screw y'all. I know what I'm doing. In my head thinking, I'm a grown man. I can make my own decisions. Like, I don't need to apply for jobs right now. I don't care where I went to school. I'm still going to just be me and be real and go do my damn thing. And that brought me to Colorado. It also helped. Like, my brother was already out there. He had, secured me a position to work with him at this luxury property that he was at. And then lo and behold, he took off like a year or two later, and I stuck around for 6 years.
Dude, that's so crazy. So, because when I graduated, I was so the opposite. Like, I need to get a job. I need to get like a real job. I need to do X, Y, and Z because that's what I'm expected to do. And it's taken me, bro. It's taken me out here. It's taken me 7 years to come to the same realizations that you had graduating college.
Yeah, I mean, I also was like, I need to get a job, but
you were interning. Where were you interning? On the Hill?
I did that going into my senior year, and that was like, everyone does these internships on the Hill, and they sound all massive, but really it's, you show up and you don't do anything all day but answer a few phone calls. So I never saw that really going anywhere. But yeah, I mean, the job thing was two parts. It was like, one, I guess it wasn't that I didn't think I could get all these other jobs that the students around me were getting, but it was just more or less like I didn't feel comfortable applying for any jobs because they just frankly didn't interest me, and it scared me because I kind of knew I would suck at them if it didn't interest me. So I just went with what interested me and wrote it off as like, yeah, I can easily play this into my, post-college gap year before work. And I mean, once again, lo and behold, it turned out to be 6 years. You hear those stories all the time in ski towns. But
was there any point during the 6 years where, because I know you were probably getting pressure from your family, like, hey Zach, you gotta try and get a real job, right?
Yeah, I mean, the pressure was minimal because I was so happy, and my parents have always been cool about the happiness factor. But yeah, I mean, dude, I'd get emails like job leads, and it'd be like, whether it was this sales job or this other corporate job, this, that, and the other, and they were so far off from who I actually was as a person that I remember it would insult me. I would be like, how could this person send me this, link thinking that this is what I'm going to be? It was like, they don't even know me. So, I mean, really, people were just trying to help, but in my own mind, in my own skin, I was almost uncomfortable with it because I was like, wow, people don't even know me. Like, I got to make some sort of name for an identity for myself so that people do know me and I can be around the right people from there going forward. So it took some time for for people to finally realize, like, hey, maybe he's not making $100K in some corporate job right out of college, but he's where he's supposed to be.
Dude, good on you, man, for being that self-aware at that age. I had no idea who I was when I graduated. Zero.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had that awareness early on in Georgetown because I was a kid showing up to Georgetown in a minivan with my parents while everyone else was in their, luxury European cars. So I knew I was different, but it just it meant staying real. So stirring the mate over here, huh?
It's hot. Because when I graduated, so much of who I was tied up into playing football.
Yeah.
And when I moved...
But you were a stud, so that makes sense. That was your identity.
Yeah, it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then until it wasn't, right? And then when it wasn't, that's when I'm freaking out. And I'm freaking out because it's like, all right, well, this is the first time in 10 plus years where I didn't know what the next step was going to be. I didn't know who I was and what I was supposed to do. And because of all that, I listened to the outside world to tell me who I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to be doing. And did that for 7 years.
It's funny when we have these chats, Rob and I have these chats, and he's like describing to me toughing it out in the workplace, and I'm like, I don't even know that world, fortunately.
Oh, my goodness.
I've been totally fortunate in that respect that, there were plenty of scraping penny days and being a total ski bum and wishing I was making a bit more money. But to be straight up, I mean, I'd never been happier than sleeping out of the back of my Subaru for a month in Colorado with nowhere to live and just running all the time and showing up at trailheads. Mind you, I had my dog in that damn car too at the same time. And that's still probably the happiest I've been. So yeah.
I think that is awesome. I can't believe it's taken me kind of this long. I moved out to California, almost 6 months to the day, actually.
Yeah. But I mean, I can totally relate to what you're saying. I mean, the whole expectations of others wearing down on you and not being true. I mean, that was what I experienced. I just experienced it earlier than you, man. Like, sophomore year of college, it finally hit me that, you're not going to be the star of the football team anymore. It was easy growing up in a small town, being big fish, small pond, being the star of the football and basketball team, and, just crushing it in that environment. And then I experienced the same sort of, breakdown when I got to school. I kind of... I had the transition in identity because I knew early on at being at Georgetown that I wasn't going to be the star of the team or even close to. So it was like, all right, time to shift. But before that shift was 6 months or so of down in the dumps, hard times. Way hard times, way dark. It's not always been clear as light like it is today. It's still not clear as light. It's still, I live in the fog just as much as, well, let's just say I live in the fog like anybody else here and there,
Yeah,
but
you're human.
Yeah, but my suffering with identity, I think, just came a bit early. I mean, I'm still working on my identity. I don't know. I'm sitting here with a beanie on and a Grateful Dead shirt, and I work in wellness, so I don't know. But so I can totally relate. I went through that same stuff, but it, fortunately came out the other side.
It's so simple that you were just like, I'm just gonna go do what I like to do, because I never really knew what I really liked to do once I graduated college without football, because it was such a big part of my life that until you start to think about all right, what do you actually like to do? And then once you do that, just fill your life with as much as you can. That's kind of the route I went.
Yeah, well then all thinking, you just don't have to think anymore. You're just, it's just happening. You're doing what you want to do, and you're doing it all the time. And the thinking, the questioning, it just goes out the door. I highly suggest to anybody to put their life on pause at some point, and I'm just going off of my experience, but just put everyone to the side. It's not being selfish. It's actually being selfless, in my opinion, because you're going to be able to give back a better product, a better version of you. But to put off some time to just like totally explore yourself and do you. And, you know, whether it's just traveling or living in a ski town like I did, moving out of the city, just giving yourself time to explore. Really, that's all. I think that's huge. I don't know how I got into that right there, but
no, I agree, man. It's I didn't do that work until 2016, and we're 2017, so 6 years after college, and that work meant taking time, doing a lot of journaling, a lot of meditating, and really thinking back and trying to figure out when in my life I was most happy and what made up those experiences. So for me, it was being active outside with other people.
Yeah. I mean, totally. I mean, that's obviously I can relate to that. Yeah, I mean, you just got to got to be real with yourself on what makes you happy, and you know, do a little audit. And you know, this is all just my opinion, but just do a little audit and assess where you're at, where you want to go, where you came from, and just you know, you got to be doing what is truly you, you know. And if that takes moving to a ski town to be a ski bum for 5 years after going to college, then, you know, just be real and do you. And by doing you and having fun and putting off this happy vibe all the time, you're going to get all the good things that come with it. At least in my experience, that's what's happened. Like, all the best things in my life have come to me when I was essentially in my state of flow.
Can you give a couple examples?
I mean, by being out in Colorado skiing and immersing myself more in the adventure community and being in my flow, I attracted more like-minded people, which eventually led to being introduced to somebody that wanted to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, which I had vaguely even just known about beforehand. Which led to me ending up doing the trail, and then moving forward after the trail, I realized, like, yeah, I'm gonna be an ultra runner, and none of that would have come about, and I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't enter this state of flow and then trust in it, because it just brought me all the goodness along with it. Like, I would have never met these people and got to where I am now if I hadn't put myself into my right environment, which allowed me to flow and meet these people and get where I am.
What do you mean by flow?
I mean, my personal definition of flow is just literally pretty much how it sounds, just moving through life effortlessly in the way that you were meant to do it. I don't know what is it, Chickamauga, or however you say that name.
Mihaly.
We're gonna have to pull that one up on the computer here.
Oh, spell check.
It's harder to pronounce than my last name. But yeah, I mean, I would say that is flow. Flow is like your decision making's easier. Everything is easier because you're flowing effortlessly like water down a creek. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So that when I think of flow, that's how I think of it. Everything is piecing together as it should because you're right where you're supposed to be.
Was there ever a point when you moved out to Colorado after college where you started questioning yourself, or was there any like doubts that crept in your mind, like, oh, am I doing the right thing? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah, totally. It was all, I think it had to do with patience. I was out there moved out in December, 2 days after I left Georgetown. So I finished college and went home for 2 days, which is Massachusetts. And then I flew to Colorado, and I had a nice winter season out there. And, but my ego was kind of still getting in the way of allowing myself to truly flow, because I just finished school where all my friends were getting, nice finance jobs or, political jobs, whatever, those sorts of jobs that you receive from coming out of a school at Georgetown. So my ego was kind of getting in the way of allowing me to flow for what I would say was like, the first year. I remember reaching out at the time and not being real with myself. So I would reach out to contacts that I had, like, hey, like like, hey, I'm super interested in this position,
So
blah,
funny.
blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then even signing it, it'd be like, sincerely, Zachary L. Barbius. And I was like, who in the world has ever freaking called me Zachary L. Barbius? Like, I'm Zach Barbius or Z.
Yo, Z money.
And I
Z-Money
remember
fresh.
it hit me when I had written an email to a good friend of mine's dad, and he was about to push my shit along to the next person, and nothing happened for a day, and I think I emailed him back, and I was just like, yo, can't do it.
Yeah,
like,
don't do
because
it.
I can't do it, because I know that I'm going to back out, and then I'm going to totally wreck just this whole relationship. So, yeah, the ego was getting in the way. But then once again, I kind of checked back in and got real with myself. It was also hard too, because I moved out to a ski community that wasn't like in Aspen, where you had a lot of Georgetown kids going to. Kids from the same communities, they all tend to go to Aspen and Vail and Telluride, but there weren't many headed into Steamboat. Those are more like your UVM, your Mainers, Wisconsin, like just more hardcore, gritty, heady people, which, I honestly, that's like what I grew up with and associated with. But once again, I had sort of let my ego get the best of me, and I was like, nah, like, these aren't my people for a little bit. I was a kid that like showed up in Steamboat with my Georgetown ring on, like,
Wait,
hello,
actually-
douchebag.
Did you actually get a ring?
Yeah, man.
Oh, I didn't get one.
Come on, it's not like I had to have something.
I don't think I got one. No, I didn't get one. I had a couple T-shirts.
So yeah, I mean, all the things that were impeding me post college at first were primarily ego driven, but still just like a learning process thing. I mean, I also wasn't like even close to the best skier in my friends group, so it once again hit me hard that I wasn't like the best at something. So the skiing wasn't as fun to me because I had skied growing up, but I wasn't an expert by any means, nowhere even close to where I'm at now. So it was really hard the first year to get adjusted. Not really hard, but that did have an impact. So it was like, okay, I really didn't quite have my identity thing down yet, but lo and behold, I stuck with it. I did a winter, stayed through the summer, which they say about all ski towns, like, come for the winter, stay for the summer. You're going to be here forever, pretty much. And yeah, I stayed through that summer, and I'd say about 8 months in, I was totally loving it. I liked it at first, but it was more of like, let's just see where this ride takes me type deal. So, yeah, I mean, it took a minute to get comfortable. I totally questioned it at first, and just kind of had patience and stuck it out.
What type of work? What type of work were you doing out there?
I mean, work-wise, I was fortunate to fall into a super fun position at a luxury residence club doing concierge type work. So it could be anything from driving guests around town, bringing bags to rooms. But it was honestly best job ever. So much fun, like totally interesting people all the time. Everybody's always stoked because they're going skiing.
They're on vacation.
Yeah, they're on
right?
vacation,
Yeah.
man. They're just totally stoked. And what do they want to talk about? They want to talk about skiing. And what do I want to talk about? What I still talk about, live by the beach, I still talk about skiing. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to. So it was like, it was perfect, great gig. So I worked there for 6 years. I had many jobs at Steamboat. You laugh at some of these jobs.
Well, okay, go through them.
Oh man. So I did the hospitality, which was my main gig. My first roommate in Steamboat, he took over a hot air balloon company, so I started working for the hot air balloon company, rigging up balloons, putting them in the sky, taking them down out of the sky. I worked at an interior design store. just working the counter, working the shop, just like keeping things clean, nice
didn't know
and
that.
tidy. Yeah, man. I've worked at a ski shop for a few weeks, just valeting skis, bringing them back and forth. I worked for moving companies, which is always an interesting thing. I would do things like caretake homes here and there. I mean, if I actually sat here and listened about it, I think, with proper time, it'd probably add up to like a dozen different jobs. And it was all just to stay busy, make a little bit of an extra coin, because, you're not making much in the seasonal industry. So, yeah, I was up for whatever, though. I mean, I was just hustling, man. I've always kind of been a hustler, though. I mean, my first job I was 15 and I worked at a landscape place. I actually started watering flowers. I was a flower boy, and then started driving the Bobcat, and
The flower
moving
boy.
mulch, moving trees, stuff like that. Yeah, so I've been used to the hazing and the do what you got to do to make some money. Like I talk about ego, but there's really never had an ego when it comes to making money.
No. No.
Yeah, I mean, I can think like just totally random stuff to make some money in Colorado so that during the off season I could get out and travel and hit my spots.
How much traveling did you do during the year? Or where were you going? What were you doing? Like, I mean, sounds like you're skiing. Well, first of all, how many days a year are you skiing?
On average, like 60. I think my high was probably 80 something. Maybe, 80 something is probably my high. So it's quite a few. I don't think I ever got 100-day year like people brag about, but I certainly was skiing quite a bit.
It's a lot of days.
Yeah, but I mean, so to answer your question, in the ski towns, you get 2 shoulder seasons. You get the fall shoulder season, which is pretty much October till Thanksgiving. And then you get a spring shoulder season, which is like May through mid-June. And they're called mud seasons. In the fall, it's raining, it's sleeting, it's snowing. The trails are too muddy to mountain bike or run, ride, hike, whatever, just to use them. And then in the spring, all the snow's melting. So what do people do in Colorado during those seasons? You head out to the desert, you camp, you go mountain biking. Moab, Utah was not really close. That was about 5 hours from me there. That was a popular destination. I would come out to California and visit my brother, visit friends, did a couple trips, Mexico.
You cruised through Chicago one time.
Yeah, I'd just go see the homies in the off season. So that was awesome because that gave me time to just reflect and be free to be, when I actually think about it and consider what it was just really, it was so much flexibility. It was like, okay, well, I didn't book a trip, but I'll just drive back east and see all my friends.
Having that time off is huge.
Yeah. I mean, it freed up space for me to forge and fortify new and old relationships. I mean, people. One guy I met, I'm really good friends with still. Met him in Steamboat, and I went to Cayman Islands and he got me dive certified one year. Other friends blowing bubbles. Those are my favorite things to do. Right, get under the water and blow bubbles. Nothing. I'm telling you, if any of you listening, if there is anybody listening, scuba diving is so much fun. Like you literally just blowing bubbles underwater like a kid. It's so much fun. But yeah, I mean, all different stuff like that. Just little adventure-based camp trips, road tripping, just getting free. Just getting as free as possible, really.
What were your top 3 memories being in Colorado?
Oh, man, really?
You could go good or bad.
Nah, they're all good. I don't really... I mean, dig way back for the bad ones. But anyways, I mean... Dude, probably just skiing really deep blower power days. Like, I tell you what, there was one day, I forget what year it was, I think 2012 maybe, 13, that Steamboat got 36 inches in like 24 hours or less. And if you look at a snow report across the country, that's actually not like the craziest number ever. Out west and here in California, you get much bigger dumps in like the 24-hour period, but the snow quality is so much different. Like out here, it's really wet and heavy, whereas in the Rockies, it's really light. So 3 feet of snow, you're skiing through that in Colorado. 3 feet of snow in California, chances are, unless you hit it while it's falling, you're going to be skiing on top of that because it's packing up and it's just a much more dense snow. So 36 inches in 24 hours in Colorado is all-time dream conditions.
You get your snorkel out.
Yeah, I worked this one out. I weaseled my way to have this day off so hard, and it totally worked out. And thank you to everyone that made it possible. And essentially, my buddy Zach and a couple of us, we met and went to a Phil Lesh and Friends concert in Broomfield, Colorado. Drove back that night. It started snowing. I had the following day off because I wanted to have a shoulder day for my concert. And the funny thing is that I had switched with my brother. So my brother was covering my shift. And he was as into skiing as I was at the time. But, and I kind of felt bad because he had been there longer. So this seniority thing's playing into it. But I couldn't give it up. And I knew that the big storm was coming. And, we ended up getting 36 inches in 24 hours. And I got to ski it that morning. And just memories like that. I can't think of 3 specific ones. But just having the freedom to go out and ski when you want in some of the best snow, most beautiful trees, around some of the coolest people that I've come to know those are the experiences that stand out. Obviously the running too, but that came later. And just being able to drive out to the desert and camp, those are the ones that stand out. I mean,
that was always my favorite weekend every year is when we came out to see.
Yeah, really? Yeah. I mean, it's just like so carefree. Everything is just so easy too. I mean, things that were playing to my happiness at the time that I think are so essential to life are like a walkability score, a ride your bike score. Well, Steamboat's like a 9,000 out of 1,000 on those, right? It's like for 2 years. Before the PCT, I didn't know I was going to do the PCT. People were like, what are you training for? I was like, I don't know, life, right? I was riding my bike to and from work, 4.5 miles each direction, down the hill into the valley, back up the hill to work, back and forth, 2 years in a row. Rain, sleet, or snow, fall, winter, spring, and summer. That was my way of getting around. And there were days of negative, I'm not kidding you, there are so many people that probably wouldn't even believe this, negative 30.
Oh, I'm
negative 30, studs in the tires, gloves down, everything, riding my bike. And I've never been happier because just had so much time to just be outside and free and to do things differently and creatively. It was just like, those are the things. There's no 3 that really stand out. But man,
Zach is also a weatherman. If you couldn't tell, this dude knows more about the weather than the weatherman.
I mean, yeah, I've always been so interested in weather. You can ask my parents.
Well, you spent so much time outside, right?
Yeah, but it came before that. When I was a little kid, I'd like watch the Weather Channel in my. You fake sick that day for school so you can stay home, and other people are watching like whatever, I don't know, Nickelodeon.
Yeah,
I was watching the Weather Channel.
You got Jerry Springer
on repeat. Like how boring. So, excuse me.
No, that's.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about other things like top 3. I mean, one of the coolest things about being there was like, you got your new skis, you got your gear laid out, and the first big storm's coming. Or maybe it's not even the first one, like you're deep in the winter and the snowpack is just insane. And all of a sudden another batch is coming. And then the forecast the next day is for another batch. And the energy around town is just buzzing.
Oh, I bet.
Everyone's like, yo, you pressing glass tomorrow? Are you getting out there? Which means like getting to the gondola first, pressing the doors till they open type deal. I mean, unfortunately, I'm not yet into any sort of surf or ocean community out here, but I imagine it's the same thing as like a nice swell coming in because a swell originates thousands of miles away. So for days you're waiting for the swell to reach the coast to surf it. Well, it's the same exact story in a ski town. You're just like oh man, you look at this storm, it's moving in and it's coming down from the northwest. That's like perfect direction for Colorado, right? And it's just like, holy shit, I'm about to have 3 epic days in a row, and you're just totally stoked. So those are the things that were like, man, quality of life through the roof.
I bet, man. Stress at an all-time low.
All-time low.
Unless you have a bear creeping in your house, tearing things up.
Stress, I mean, yeah, it doesn't exist. Bears, they do exist.
So you were in Colorado for what? 6 years? 5 years?
I was in Colorado from December of
Wait, you moved
2010. Yeah, moved. I went home for 2 days in Massachusetts, then moved out to Colorado from Georgetown. December of 2010 until November of 2016, with 1 5-month hiatus while I was on the Pacific Crest Trail, and then like a 40-day departure while I was on the Arizona Trail, and obviously plenty of traveling in between, like we talked about. But yeah, Steamboat was home for those 6 years.
Where was your favorite place to travel outside of Steamboat during your time off during those years?
In Colorado?
In the States, because I know you were doing some bumping around, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it would be between any 14er, meaning a 14,000-foot peak. Colorado has more than anywhere else. I thought the number was 52. I think it is. It might be 54. It kind of toggles back and forth because there's a few that, like we said, yeah, I think people are up there stacking stones and then they count them, but that are like 2-3 feet off or 10, whatever. So it's in the low to mid 50s. But anyways, more than anywhere else, I think California has the next highest amount of 14er density, and I think that's like 17. So, and going to these big mountains was probably, I would say that was my favorite thing to do. I mean, on my days off during my last summer there, while I was training for an ultra, I would just drive out to the trailheads after work and sleep in my Subaru with my dog and wake up,
Shout out Miss Rhino.
Shout out Miss Rhino. Love you, baby. Hashtag Miss Rhino.
Yeah.
Check her out. So yeah, going to 14ers because it's just so rad. I mean, any time of the year it can be snowing up there, and I've been snowed on every month in Colorado. And it does have actual life-threatening elements to it. So the rush is there. You can't be stuck on top of these ridges in a lightning storm. It's just, you're really upping your chance of getting bolted. So big mountain, hiking, climbing, whatever you want to call it, summiting. That was probably my favorite thing to do around the state. And so where do you go for that? Well, Steamboat is kind of isolated on the northwest slope of the Rocky Mountains, meaning that there aren't actually any 14ers any closer than, say, 2.5 hours away. So it took some effort.
Yeah.
Like it still takes some effort to go hit these. But yeah, I would drive to areas like Leadville that's pretty popular, and that is the highest incorporated town in America. It's just over 10,000 feet. And surrounding there, you have just tons of 14ers.
Yeah.
Tons.
You ever hit a couple in a day?
Have I done a few in a day? Let's see. Just, there's this pretty easy trifecta. I mean, I guess it's not easy, but I think it's Cameron, Lincoln, and Bros. That was a trifecta day. Some of them, like that, you're kind of ridgelining over to another one. And you can do like Torreys and Grays, which I actually haven't done. And a lot of them are more like back-to-back days. I would summit, say, in the morning, come back down, chill all day, make a dinner, camp out, go back to bed, wake up in the morning, hit another one. But outside of the 14ering, which is just totally rad, there's if anyone is interested in Colorado trying to do this, I recommend getting to know weather patterns and what to look for, but B, where to look for the information on this. 14ers.com. So cool.
Spell it out with a number.
Number 14 numerical
Like 49ers, like 49ers is
yeah,
over
exactly.
the 14.
And on there you can get all these awesome routes, topographical, 3D, everything. Weather reports, live information. It is so rad. I mean, you want to go into the wormhole?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nerding out.
If my bosses would have tracked my history at work, I'm sure they were. It was like 14ers for like, a slow night for like an hour just dreaming about which one I was going to get on top of. And then aside from that, Moab, Utah. Everyone knows about it, so I'm not blowing up anyone's spot here. But it's insane. The thing that's so rad about Utah and Colorado, but particularly Utah, is that there is so much BLM land, Bureau of Land Management, meaning my public lands, meaning your land, my land, his land, her land, everybody's land. It is public land. Yeah, tune it. You literally can pull off the road, set up camp, and hang and do your thing. And it is those areas in Utah, fortunately, and Colorado are so set up for outdoor recreation that you show up, you can run, bike, hike. Your buddies that aren't into that might be slacklining. So, they might be just hanging at the fire all day.
How can people find those lands? What's the best way to look for them?
I would, when I'm researching them, I will just type in like BLM land in the specific area. So if for instance, you're going to St. George, Utah is a destination close to us in Utah, actually. You can type in public lands, St. George. There's usually a bureau that'll throw up a map and let you know. Usually it's yellow on the map. You can, for camping's sake, I use a very simple site called My Free Campsites, and that'll give you 3 different types of, for lack of a better word, rating of the campsite. Not rating, just category, like National Forest, paid, or BLM. BLM is always free. So yes, just do a little bit of a quick Google search will give you a good idea of what's free, what's allowed, what's not. And there's so much of it in Utah. I mean, I haven't stayed in a hotel road tripping or traveling for years. Like, I just drove back to Colorado, as you know, about 2 months ago now to drop a car to a bud. And on the way out, I just drove like 8 hours, and I flicked up my map. I popped onto the site and found that I could sleep at what's called the Great Western Trail parking lot. Great Western Trail is actually a through hike as well from Mexico to Canada via. I think it's. I think it's Arizona, Utah, Wyoming, Idaho. Anyways, it's the north-south route, south-north route, Mexico to Canada, blah, blah, blah. Parked there, slept in the back of my car, drove the next day to Colorado.
So that the last night in the Subaru.
Yeah. Love that car.
How much did you buy it for?
That was a G.
A G.
Uh-huh. And, yeah. I got so much love for that vehicle, man.
Try getting rid of it here. You could give it away.
Try driving that in Beverly Hills. Try. I did.
Oh, man. Getting some looks.
It's just, yeah. It's just, it's funny.
Here's a question for you. So you went like completely against the grain after college. Mad respect for doing that, because I certainly didn't. I was too scared to, too afraid to. How did you develop the trust in yourself, in the future, to say, I'm going to go, do this for, it turned out being, 6 years of your life. I'm sure you didn't imagine it was going to be 6 years. Whereas a lot of other people, myself included, mainly, where the question's coming from, would be too scared to say, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to do what's proven instead and go get a real job and make this amount of money and go do this instead. How'd you do that?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, right? Like, what in the world are you thinking?
My question is always to myself, like, how did I get here? But no, I think really, I certainly questioned it here and there as like, oh my God, like, how am I going to make enough money to retire and get the girl that I want to get and live the life that I want to live and yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, I remember thinking like, I'm still young, whatever, and that was always a factor, but it was more like just gauging it on happiness. I remember thinking like, nobody's as stoked as me. I'm stoked all the time. If I'm this stoked, why would I change anything? Isn't that what we're all striving for anyways, to be stoked all the time? Like stoke meter high. I want to be buzzing stoked all the time. Can I say stoked anymore?
Yeah, I get it.
I want to be like so damn stoked. And I remember it hit me at some point. I would get the chills, the goosebumps so frequently, just like whatever, just pedaling my bike back to work, this or that. Like just in these ordinary instances being filled with joy to the point where I was like laughing out loud as if someone just hit me with some drugs.
Yeah.
And I would use that to fuel my reasoning when I would get questioned by those that at the time still did seem in some way, shape, or form to have some say on my life, I like to think that I started making decisions for myself somewhere around the sophomore year of college. But I grew on top of that. But yeah, all those moments of just being stoked all the time, like driving down the road, getting the goosebumps, giggling in pure joy, that gave me the confidence to believe that I was doing something right for myself, because I knew and remembered what it was like to not feel that way, which was the early years of college, where I would go into the dark hole and, had bouts of depression, anxiety. I was the kid like hoping that the game would get rained out type instance, and after that tipping point, it was more.
Wait, what was the tipping point? Like what?
The tipping point was, well, I guess, the way back tipping point of being more me was in college when I decided I wasn't going to stress about how much playing time I got as a wide receiver or, a safety, and rather accepting my new position as just playing special teams and snapping a ball through my legs and having fun every day. And that was such a big turning point for me in college. Because, maybe it wasn't the identity that I totally wanted and set out to create. I wasn't like, I'm going to college to be an awesome long snapper.
The best long snapper on the spot.
Yeah, thank you. But it still gave me a bit of an identity and a purpose and a reason to still be on the team. And it gave me some confidence that, hey, at least I'm good at this. And that was kind of...
It's an important part.
Yeah, otherwise I was just going to stress myself. And at first I thought, like, oh, man, are you just giving up? Like, but then it was like, well, for what? For who? Like, why? You're not going to play in the NFL as a wide receiver. Yeah, you can put in all this work, or you could just focus on being good at one particular thing, which was long snapping, and using that as an identity. And that's essentially what I did to become an ultra runner as well, was give up all the alternatives, all the other options, and focus on one particular and particularly good option and stick with it and kind of hyper focus in a more singular fashion.
And that was sophomore year?
So yeah, with the football stuff, that was sophomore year. So that was kind of the tipping point I kind of forgot. I think I forgot what your original question is or where we were going with that.
What the turning point was for you to go from, I guess, not being stoked, being depressed.
Oh, right,
not feeling well, and then what the turning point for you was to like get on the other side of that.
Yeah, so that was it. It was a big identity factor was the tipping point. Got on the other side of that, was totally cool with my new position. There was no stress involved. Like I could walk out on the football field backed up against the goal line and snap it and just be like, yeah, I'm not gonna fuck this one up. I'm not gonna snap it over their head. Like I might have biffed one before, but it wasn't an emotions driven thing. I honestly can say I was never nervous lining up to throw a ball through my legs. Like it was just at that point it was me. I'd done it 1,000 times in practice.
Yeah,
it was all I was doing. It was what I was focusing on. So it was like totally cool. So that was the tipping point of being stoked for like the rest of college. And it's not like I was carrying around some banner that said, "Yo, I'm the long snapper on the football team," like stoked like that. But it was a tipping point from what was weighing me down was no longer weighing me down. And then so fast forward a bunch of years out to Colorado, and stoke meter was just way high all the time because I was once again just doing what I wanted to do all the time, and spending a ton of time outdoors, surrounding myself with a lot of like-minded people that also truly enjoyed what they were doing and why they were there, and also felt a sense of purpose, I believe. So it was a lot of community that was making me feel good. It was
God, it's so important because when you
fresh air,
yeah.
And I love material things and nice things just like the next person, but there's a real bare bones way of living in the mountains, and that also just helped me focus on what my actual purpose was. And this community also was into traveling and going to unique places. I had time to go just walk in the woods, run in the woods, ski in the woods, a lot of time to reflect and appreciate just what was around me. So yeah, the stoke meter was just stupid high, and that helped me make decisions and be confident in where I was going, because I knew that if I was happy, I was going to attract the right people into my life, and that people would want to be around me, and that would bring me goodness. And thankfully, for the most part, that played out to be true. And
how would you recommend other people to get to that point too? Like, what was the type of dialogue in your head, or what led you to getting you out to Colorado? I mean, how can you help other people kind of find that within themselves, is what I'm asking.
I mean, you think you touched on it earlier, which is reflecting on what used to make you the happiest. Like when you are a kid, you have much less of an ego, and you're way more influenced naturally and organically in your decision making just on how you feel.
Yeah.
And as in my opinion, as you grow older, there are a lot more external influences. There are these ideas of what you should be as a young adult, as a young man, young woman, and then you move forward to middle age. There's all these different parameters to like what it should be, but really it's like, that's someone else's fucking dream, man. Like, it's not like, live your dream, be you, be as much you as you can.
What do you think? Okay, what do you think prevents people from doing that?
Just other people.
Yeah.
Like listening too much to the voices of other people, or worrying to live up to something, thinking too far about the future, making it too convoluted. Like just stick with what what made you happy when you were young. What did you want to do? What excited you? What still excites you? What do you spend the majority of your time doing outside of your occupation? Maybe if you're lucky, your occupation is within it, but what is it that you like to do the most as hobbies? Doing those things as much as possible is going to raise up your stoke meter.
How is that led? Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it sounds so simple, but it is hard. I'm a hypocrite,
so
just like
hard.
the rest of them. Like, I move out here to California, and there is actually an exceptional outdoor community out here, but it's not the same as Colorado still. And those moments where I notice that I'm blue, what I mean by blue is just not like feeling totally stoked, is because I haven't been doing the things that it was put on this planet to do as consistently, which for me means driving to Lone Pine, to the Sierra Nevada, and getting in the mountains and going for a run. I now don't care that it takes me 3.5 to 5 hours to get to these places. Doesn't matter.
You gotta go. Yeah.
Either way, what is the difference if it takes 3 hours or 2 in Colorado, like it did in Colorado? It's 1 hour.
Yeah.
What would you do with that hour otherwise?
Yeah.
So just like make the time and just go for it and do what you want to do. What makes you happy? What made you happy earlier in your life? Reflect. So you got to reflect, right? Reflection is so massive. When I think for me, when I get in a hole, that my best way to come out is to start reflecting and that usually brings up feelings of gratitude. And
What are you reflecting on? What type of questions are you asking yourself?
how did I get here? What events brought me here? And now I try to revert back. Obviously we've all had plenty of bad and traumatic events, but I try to focus on the good, and just reflect back on where it came from, how much good fortune I've been dealt. And even if you're someone that doesn't feel the same way as me, like I feel like I've been dealt a really nice deck of cards. So it's obviously coming from me. It's different than maybe somebody that feels like they've been dealt a bad deck of cards. But I still think that a way to overcome that darkness is still through gratitude. Like if you're here today living, well, at least you have that to be grateful for.
The breath.
Yeah.
Just breathing.
So that brings you into the present. But I think reflection is massive, and
It's so important. I can remember so many times where I'm so looking in the future and trying to figure out the future that all the answers are like right here that you just look right past them. You're not even aware of them because you're so focused on like, oh my God, I gotta get to this point and then then I'll be happy, or I gotta do X, Y, and Z. For me, it was like I gotta get this job or this promotion and that'll fill me up, but it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it, 1,000%.
Holding on tight, saying what's right. Mr. Tell me how you know.
All right, great. That concludes part 1. Head on over to iTunes to check out part 2. Thank you for tuning in, and see y'all at the top.